you want to be healthier, yet you just don't know what to do? All these shows telling you this and that, but nothing seems to work. Well, listen close. Golden State Media Concepts has got something great for you. The Health and Wellness Podcast dedicated to workout trends, healthy eating habits, diet, and everything about healthy living. Join us in our banters as we help you not just live life to the fullest, but live it to the healthiest.
Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Health and Wellness Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Alex. I don't know about y'all, but I feel like 2020 has been a remarkably long year. It has somehow flown by super fast and also just extended forever into the distance. I'm very tired. That's just my general mood, I think, is tired right now. And so I've been thinking a lot about wellness sabbaticals. We're going to talk about those today, how they work, what they are, and stick around to the end when we will talk about how to turn this period of pretty much enforced isolation into a time of wellness. So first up, what the heck is a wellness sabbatical? Well, it's actually pretty cool in my opinion. You take about 3+ weeks of focusing on your health and wellness, and in that time, it's meant to make some lasting changes in your lifestyle. It takes a few weeks to create a habit. And really, this can be anywhere from 18 to 254 days to form a new habit, but it takes about an average of 66 days to make that new behavior an automatic one. You can also think about it with the 2190 rule. So that means it takes about 21 days to make a habit and about 90 days to turn that into a permanent change in your lifestyle. So these 3 weeks can be really great for making habits, y'all. Even though we'll have to keep doing it for about 90 days, 66 to 90 days to make it automatic. It really just depends on the individual. But you can do that in a wellness sabbatical. And now wellness sabbaticals are a little bit different from a lot of other types of wellness, in that you get to still have your smartphone or your laptop with you. You're trying to make lifestyle changes, and to do that, you kind of need to keep those integral components of your lifestyle with you. You can't really forge that balance if you're not holding up the other end of that equation. So a lot of folks will shame you, or maybe already have, for taking your laptop or your phone on vacation. But for a lot of people, it's really just not possible or reasonable to completely disconnect. If it's going to make you more stressed than you already are, well, that's not really helping with your wellness, is it? Remember, everyone is different. And yes, it's important to limit our screen time as much as possible and to put on those orange light filters. I think they're blue light filters because they filter out blue light, but it turns your screen orange. Y'all know what I mean. Those programs like Flux. Or to use orange tinted safety glasses when you are looking at your computer. They make them specifically for looking at screens to filter out that blue light. And you can get them online. They're not necessarily safety glasses or sunglasses, but they look very similar. So you can use those, and that can help mitigate some of the effects of looking at those screens a lot. But if being away from your screen causes you more stress, well, maybe take it with you. You can work on weaning yourself off of it. Going cold turkey on just about anything is normally not a great way to form new habits. It's normally just a really good way to experience more distress and to think more about that habit and to crave the devices associated with the habit, whether that be cigarettes or your screens. So you can take your screens with you onto your wellness sabbaticals. And if folks give you a hard time, well, that's a them problem. They don't have to bring their screens, but they can leave you alone while you use yours. When you are disconnecting from technology, it's pretty fun, and it can give you a lot of, a lack of distraction from the day-to-day. But it's not really possible in today's world for many of us to be separated from that anymore. We have our phones with us that are also our cameras. You go on vacation and you want your camera with you. Why on earth would you buy a new camera unless you are really into photography when you have one that's perfectly fine on your phone, right? So that's okay. A lot of folks have been very well-meaning in the wellness spaces in trying to convince us to totally depart from our screens, but it's just not entirely possible. For some people. Other people are totally fine with it. Personally, I like to schedule Sundays as my off-the-grid time, and after a certain time that day, I will put down my phone and just not answer it. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm totally off screens that day, but it does mean that I get to detach from the rest of the world and having to be in constant contact. And for me, that is wellness. I can still play video games to de-stress, things like that, but not having to be constantly within reach helps me to relax. I'm a millennial, and I grew up in an era in which you couldn't reach people all of the time. I didn't have a cell phone until I was 18, so I've spent more time in my life without a cell phone than I have with a cell phone. And I really enjoyed those days where, if you're not home, you just come home and you check your messages. It's okay to roll a phone call over to voicemail and check it later. Just because you're not actively doing something with other people or actively engaged in work doesn't mean that you're not busy. You can be spending time with yourself and totally be busy. Relaxing and watching an episode of your favorite TV show, that can also be being busy. You are just not available to hang out with other people. I think oftentimes we view being busy as it being associated with work, at least in Western cultures. But it doesn't have to be that way. Being busy really just means that you're not available for discussions or for hanging out or anything like that. Sometimes you just don't have the emotional bandwidth to put in the emotional labor, and that's okay. That is part of your wellness in creating these boundaries and seeing them through. So with your wellness sabbaticals, they are not as hardcore as they necessarily sound. So we've already discovered that you can take your devices with you. You can answer your phone while you're on them if that is something that you enjoy. And it's pretty interesting, in my opinion. They're more so meant to focus on your mental health and well-being more than just about anything else. Although, of course, remember, we are individuals and we like to keep things holistic over here. So if for you, good mental health also means working out and you felt like you just haven't had enough time, then perhaps adding some workouts to your wellness sabbatical would be helpful. Or going on daily walks for getting some vitamin D. I walked to the store this week with my godson just because we really needed the vitamin D. He and I are very much introverts. We want to be indoors, especially since, there's seasonal allergies around right now. They don't impact me as strongly as they do him. But, we need some Claritin, but we also need some vitamin D. So we went for a short walk to the store and back. And sure, we picked up some snacks that aren't necessarily so great for us. But we were having a movie night. And that in and of itself is wellness. So we got some exercise and vitamin D on the way to the store and back. And then we also worked on our mental health and just relaxing, watching really funny B movies like Sand Sharks, which we've rated a 5 out of 5 for hilarity. It was really funny and we enjoyed it a lot. So it still got 5 stars, even though it's a B movie. If you're interested, it's on Amazon Prime. It sat on my list for a long time before we got around to it. But sometimes, depending on who you are, wellness just looks like slowing down and eating some candy like you would at a movie theater and watching some B movies or whatever kind of movies are your favorite. Everyone recharges differently. But overall, the amount of time that we give ourselves and that's given to us by businesses that we work for in order to recharge has grown much shorter than it used to be. In Europe, they used to do something called taking a cure, and that's like a 3-week-long vacation or a break that was super common decades ago. And now there's 1-week spa vacations, but a lot of places are being like, hey, just come for a couple of days. Come for just some shorter stays. Part of that's about money, and part of that is about culture. But of course, culture is super organic, as A.L. Kroeber would say, and that means it's above and beyond us. It's self-reinforcing. We can get that wheel turning, but it's going to keep turning independently of us. And it's going to change as it continues turning. Kind of like making a snowball and then rolling it downhill. It's going to pick up some changes independent of us, and it's going to be outside of our control after a certain point. I don't know if that's relatable to everyone. I grew up in the mountains, and so we would do that as kids. We would just make these giant balls of snow. We called them bobs. So they're different from snowmen because they would be too large to lift and stuff onto a snowman, but they were very sturdy, and they would get absolutely ginormous just pushing these snowballs down the hill or down the mountain. So that's where I'm coming from with these. We need to keep that in mind. Like, our culture in the United States is largely one that revolves around capitalism. It revolves around work. And so we haven't been taking as many breaks as we necessarily need to. And that's part of how our physical and mental health has been going downhill. You guys can check out some of the statistics and trends on that online too, if you are interested. It's important for us to keep in mind that we deserve more than just a weekend getaway. Don't our weekends already feel too short? Doesn't Sunday kind of feel like pre-Monday sometimes? Yes, at least it does for me and a lot of my friends. You deserve more than just a weekend getaway. Take one of your health days, your sick days, and make it a 3-day vacation. Something. It's important to have those sometimes. When I used to work in tech support, I would often give my employees at least 3-day weekends. Whenever they were feeling burned out, 3-day weekend. If you want it, you can have it. Everyone is different, and not everyone necessarily wants that. Sometimes that stress isn't coming from work itself, but from other sources, and we bring it into work, and vice versa. But I always made it an option. And I told them, if you're feeling burned out, or you just need a break at any point, just let me know, and we can schedule you an extended weekend. We'll get you a 3-day weekend or longer if we need to. And that really helped out a lot because they knew that they could come to me at any point and ask for it. and many of them did ask for one at certain points. And from a business perspective, they would always come back feeling more invigorated, and their work quality would be better, and their mental health would be better. From a people perspective, just kindness in everything, you guys. Remember that if you're going through something, there is a strong chance that other people around you are also going through their own things, especially in this time of isolation. But even without isolation, we are all NPCs in other people's lives. We're non-playable characters is what we call those in video games. And that means that, these characters are individuals we interact with, but they are outside of our experience. And that's okay. But it's also important to keep in mind that they're still characters. They're still people. And in that way, they still face their own challenges. And it's not necessarily for us to understand, but it is important for us to empathize. If you're someone who is easily able to empathize with other people, but not necessarily easily capable of reflecting that empathy to yourself, it's important to also internalize that empathy. You are valued on your own as a human, and you are not necessarily your work. Now, I say that even though I love my work and am somewhat of a workaholic, but I have to intentionally slow down and give myself some of these wellness sabbaticals. It's taken me, 31 years to figure that out, but so far it has remarkably improved my mental health and my physical health. So I'm very pro wellness sabbatical. You can work hard, but also play hard, relax hard is really what we're getting at. You already have these weighted scales, and maybe your work side of it is a little bit out of balance with your relaxation side. So really, these wellness sabbaticals are about balancing the scales. We're going to go on a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about trends in the workplace and what you could specifically experience or expect on a wellness sabbatical. Stay tuned.
Are you looking to learn more about the latest trends from the fitness world? Are you confused by all of the different trends that are out there? The GSMC Fitness Podcast is the place for you. The GSMC Fitness Podcast is the place to come for people of all skill and interest levels. Join us as we explore the latest trends in the fitness world. Does that new exercise really work? Should I try yoga? Whatever your question, chances are good you'll find an answer on the GSMC Fitness Podcast.
Back before the break, we were introducing the topic of a wellness sabbatical, including covering that concept and the basic parameters. So you can still bring your devices, your laptops, your smartphones, and whatnot. We just also have to make sure that we're taking some time for us. But remember, that looks different for everyone. So now we're going to talk about some trends in the workplace and how that is really related to these wellness sabbaticals, as well as what you could experience on one. So first off, you might already have heard the term sabbatical before used in academia. A lot of times academics and teachers would take like a year off to research or write or travel. Part of being a college professor often means trying to get that tenure packet, and that necessitates going through and doing a lot of research projects and getting those published. So that's why they would need that time to research or write. the university is banking on them doing that because that's partly how the university gets more prestige and attracts more students and also more funding. So that's historically what that is from, and the term sabbatical comes from the term Sabbath, the word for rest. So when we use it in a wellness situation, it means that we are taking time away from a traditional work environment to recharge and go do the things that bring us joy. So traditionally, it's been used as a term to mean you're away from work, you're away from everything, to go and focus on a project of some sort, usually like a research or writing project, some sort of academic project. But now we can also think of a wellness sabbatical as being time away from a lot of other things to really focus on our health and wellness. So one thing that's really helpful in that regard is that over the years, with technology becoming more prevalent and even necessary for a lot of our jobs, that's also meant that we can, some of us at least, become digital nomads. So we don't have to be tied to the office. At least not the office in a physical sense. Now our office is really wherever we're able to do work, whether that is from a Starbucks or from our own homes or from a camper on the road as we travel the country. It could really mean anything. It could be anywhere that you're able to get work done. So that's kind of a bonus for a lot of us. And that's expanded to include even more people during the time of COVID-19 and the need for social distancing and for a lot of folks needing to work at home, or at least away from the traditional office setting. And not everyone really loves it, but we can learn to love it, perhaps, or we can find ways that really focus more on self-care to kind of mitigate some of the things that we don't like about it. I've worked at home for the past 7 or so years, and I've overall really enjoyed it, but I've also felt the need to focus on my own well-being and to regroup. My ex-boyfriend, on the other hand, has mostly worked in offices or different locations from his home for most of the time. And he has not enjoyed the working from home aspects of COVID-19. It is not for him, and that is okay. If you know that about yourself, that's okay. This might not be the best fit for you. But if you'd like to try it, and you are still interested, then really what this means is that if you're comfortable working away from the office in the physical aspect, then your wellness sabbatical very well may work quite well for you. They did a study in Switzerland a while back and found that 70% of their workers who already worked remotely at least one day per week, and 53% of their workers worked remotely for at least half of the week. And that ability to work from home, when given the option to, has really changed how we think about work and wellness and travel and how those intersect with each other. You also have the advent of these office rental spaces like WeWork buildings, where if you want to go in and work with other people, you can. You can go and rent an office space so that perhaps one day of the week you have an actual office space rather than working from home. It's like the inverse of being able to work remotely one day per week. Or you could go 3 days a week, 4, 5, whatever works best for you. There are a lot of different options now. And you can rent office spaces in different cities if you're going to visit them too. That's really helpful for a lot of people who love travel and who just want to work at home for whatever reason. Perhaps you have children, or perhaps you just are an introvert and you get more done when you're alone. That's how I feel. So I can work with a team, but I enjoy my work most when I get to just go ahead and knock it out. Editing as I do it is not entirely a team sport, so it's not necessary for me to be in an office with other people. It's more of a sit at your desk quietly and pay attention to detail and get that done. Then again, I'm an introvert, so take that as you will. Now, if you are big into traveling, there are some pretty cool options where you can live and work with other people. Now, granted, living and working with other people and traveling in the time of COVID-19 is not necessarily a great idea, but once this is over, we also have those options. And there are different companies that offer that, like Roam, or Be Here, or Unsettled, or the Nomad House. And those are pretty interesting concepts, I think. So it's taking couch surfing into the workplace, sort of. You can even go on a month-long kibbutz to Israel now and work remotely there while you are experiencing that lifestyle and that cultural immersion. So you can even merge your spiritual pursuits with also your work. You don't have to necessarily leave everything behind. You can have the best of both worlds. So say that you do go on one of these wellness sabbaticals. What does that look like? Well, the most successful ones, especially if you like to work a lot like I do, or you just can't get the time away from the office, are the ones where you have wellness programming that's pretty flexible and that meets your specific needs. So you have things that you can opt into if you would like to and work around your schedule, or move your schedule around a little bit around the offerings they have. There are many different types of wellness programs for wellness sabbaticals, and I enjoy, of course, the evidence-based science ones. A lot of these programs are in nature, so you'll spend a lot of time outdoors, or at least have the option to. There are options for getting out and exercising in a bunch of different ways. Personally, I am a big fan of kayaking. I like that it works out my arms and my core, and I really just enjoy getting to be outdoors in the water and seeing everything around me. It helps me to cultivate that sense of awe and is almost meditative in that way. Personally, I do leave behind my phone for those. If I'm out going kayaking, y'all, I do not want to drop that phone in the water. I know a lot of people at water parks, especially those in Texas, I would often see them with this little plastic case over top of them that they bought in the gift shop that's supposed to keep it waterproof while still allowing you to use it. But I am not a lucky person, so I'm not going to chance it. But it's still very worthwhile for me, and I may only be out for an hour or two, but that's an hour or two more than I would normally be out and about cultivating awe, relaxing, and enjoying my personal rendition of a meditative state. A lot of these programs also offer healthy food on their menu, and indeed, that may well be the only option. So they're trying to help reinforce your great habits with giving you healthy food options. That means if you want to get McDonald's or something, you may have to leave, but that's okay. You can come right back and eat that healthy food. Unless, of course, you're going on like a 10-day silent meditation retreat, and then I don't think you're allowed to leave, and they do take your cell phones, and you can only eat a vegan diet the entire time you're there. Roger did one of those one time, and he absolutely loved it. You can't talk, you can't read, you can't write. all you do is meditate. And that's totally for him. If you're more like me, you might be more into the specific wellness sabbaticals. They also promote reducing a lot of your stress in many different ways and helping you to get good, healthy sleep. I don't know about y'all, but as an adult, I do not get a lot of great, healthy sleep. I didn't get it as a kid either. I've always been a night owl, and I think maybe my circadian rhythm is just a lot different from what everyone else is comfortable with. I still only sleep like 8 to 9 hours, but it's at a weird time of the day compared to everyone else, even though I'm not doing shift work necessarily now. So, for example, for me, if I was to look for a wellness sabbatical, I would want one that offers me a variety of exercise options. I don't want to do like group classes like Zumba or anything like that. That's not my personal jam. I would want something with options like chopping wood or going out and kayaking. I'm totally down with eating only healthy food that whole week, and also being able to focus on getting some good quality sleep. Those would be the top draws for me. There's also a lot of them that offer wellness education sessions, and I love that. A lot of us can't do better until we know better, right? How are we supposed to do better if we don't even know that we may be doing something that could be causing us to not be getting good sleep, or that may be reinforcing our stress rather than reducing it? So these wellness education offerings are pretty well interspersed between your social groups and your work, or your other options for movement and exercise and things like that, and your work. Sometimes they even have outings. So in that way, it sounds kind of like a cruise. They also tend to have pretty good internet, access to technology, and some of them even offer workspaces so that when you're at work, you can focus on being at work. And when you're at play, you can focus on being at play or relaxing. Some programs even offer workspaces for working in different time zones. So if you're someone who lives on the East Coast like I do, but works technically on the West Coast, then this is a great option for you. And like we talked about earlier with that 2190 rule, it takes about 21 days to make a habit. So that's about how long these wellness sabbaticals tend to be. They're about 3 weeks long, and that's what they encourage you to really go for. That also lines up with what they used to do in Europe with their taking a cure, those 3 weeks off. So it really is helpful to take that step back and to try to find that goal of clear thinking and prolonged creativity that just seems to come upon us when we're super relaxed. And then we can work on maintaining that after those 3 weeks of the wellness sabbatical are up, until we've reached that 66 or 90 days and really turned this new habit into a lifestyle change. We're going to go on a quick break, and when we come back, we are going to talk about your physical health and the wellness sabbatical. Stay tuned.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
talking about what you could expect from a wellness sabbatical, as well as some trends in the workplace with the emergence of technology that have allowed us to spend more time away from the physical office, away from home, and has rather turned the office into a concept of being wherever one is able to perform work. Now we're going to talk about some differences in healthcare and your physical health, and how that is related to the wellness sabbaticals. So, while we are now able to work from home more, or work from WeWork buildings, etc., we're still overworking a lot, and it's very easy when you work from home to end up spending more time working than you might otherwise in the office. And I do say this from my personal experience. If you've been off work for 30 minutes, but then suddenly you get an email alert about something going on at work and you're like, crap, that's kind of urgent, I should go ahead and handle that now. That's not necessarily healthy, but it is something that we're able to do from home, and we're often tempted to do, because now we're aware of the problem and we may be fretting over it. That is one reason why I keep my phone alerts and my calendar alerts or my Gmail alerts off when I am not at work. If I'm on the clock, call away. But otherwise, I don't need that work to be looming over my head and reminding me that there are so many things to do. There are already so many things that I need to do in my personal life and in my professional life. But if I've accomplished everything for the day and everything that needed to be done by that deadline, then I'm good. And normally, I wouldn't see that email until the next day in a traditional office setting. And it's important to perform some self-care by just letting it lie. If it's emergent, then it's emergent. If it's not, then let it ride. It'll be okay. You really can't be working absolutely 24/7. That is not healthy. It's going to increase your stress and decrease your overall health. So working too much, and that is defined as being 55 hours a week or more, has already shown to have an increased risk of stroke, coronary heart disease, and premature death. There have been several different research studies on this in many different countries, and it's resulted in some countries and companies trying to rein that in a bit. But you can still do that at the individual level, even if your company is not necessarily offering that or being proactive in that manner. It can really cause you to die early, much like smoking cigarettes or any other unhealthy habits. So it's really important to take it seriously. I know that a lot of people in my life have joked, oh, I'll sleep when I'm dead. And I've joked about that too. But anytime I have overcommitted and overworked myself, it's not been all fun and games. At first I would be very excited, and then I would be very overwhelmed. It's important to give ourselves that grace and to give ourselves the breaks that we need so we can come back and be more invigorated to do a great job, rather than trudging through our day and just doing an all right job or taking 8 hours to do what could be done in 4. I'm a big fan of task-based working rather than hours of working or time-based working. If you can get something done in 4 hours that it takes another person to do in 8, awesome. Now you should have more free time to do other things that you enjoy or need to get done. Additionally, a recent survey by China's Wuhan University of Science and Technology indicated that over 80% of Chinese employees are overworked. And the Japanese refer to death by overworking as karoshi. I may be not pronouncing that entirely correctly, but the point still stands. In the US, a Nielsen poll conducted a few years back showed that 52% of American workers in the United States did not take all of their paid vacation days. And I am one of those people. I did not take all of my vacation days when I was working as an operations manager for a tech company. I was working from home and I was just constantly working. And since I was already working at home, my perspective was, well, if I'm already working from here, then I could still work from my hotel room when I go to that conference, or I could work from my hotel room when I go to visit someone, or when I go to do this or that. And I would often end up working from home. I would find myself volunteering to work Thanksgiving and things like that, because after all, it was really quiet those days, and I was going to be home anyway. So then I would just amass all of these vacation days, but they didn't roll over from one year to the next. And an old coworker of mine taught me that you really have to take those vacation days. It helps you come back and do a better job if you want to look at it from a business and work standpoint, from a productivity standpoint. But also, you just really need it for your mental health and for your emotional and behavioral health. It helps you to be less quick to anger and more resilient. You are able to handle your stress more easily if you are taking that time away. And the research really reflects that people who take time off do live longer lives and are happier, not just in their work lives, but also in their personal lives. So do yourself and the people around you a favor and take some of those days off. You don't even have to take them all at once. You can take one for a staycation, so just to have a Wednesday off one week. You guys would be shocked, perhaps, at how nice it feels to work 2 days on, 1 day off, 2 days on, and then 2 days off. I used to work 4/10s, so I still got all 40 hours in that week, but I was able to kind of split up my week, and it felt amazing. Sometimes I would take it as a 3-day weekend, but other times I would generally have Thursday and Friday off, and then I would work Saturday and Sunday, take Monday off, and work Tuesday and Wednesday. That was pretty rad, and it worked really well for me. I'm a person who does get very engaged in work, and I'm very focused while I'm at work, but when I'm not at work, I want to be 100% not at work. And anytime I am someone's boss or team leader, I remind them of that too. And I'm like, when you're here, be 100% here. When you're not and on the clock, be 150% somewhere else. Don't even think about work. It's not going to be relevant until you come back. It's important to live your life that way by taking those breaks, but also to embody it for others. So you can empower others to also live happier, longer lives, both at work and in their personal lives, whenever possible. So the good news is that a lot of CEOs are starting to pick up on this. They're starting to see that their workers do better when they are well. And so that's part of the trend of a lot of jobs offering wellness programs. However, not all of them are the wellness programs that people truly need. So keep that in mind. Just because they have one doesn't necessarily mean that it is optimized for your health. It may just be listed as a perk so that it can attract more people to come into their office, because company culture has been a big draw for the past 5 years or so in the workspace. Some companies bring in professionals, some start their own programs, and others really do focus on your well-being. A wellness sabbatical is something that hasn't become mainstream in their wellness toolkits for these large companies at this point, but they have reported that 25% of the Fortune 100's best companies to work for do offer sabbaticals for their employees. I don't necessarily know how long each of those are, if it's that taking a cure length of 3 weeks, but they are offering more sabbaticals. And it's important for employers to look after their employees. Those are the people who make the money. So taking care of your employees is very important. Money isn't everything, but even if you think it is, you can't drive a workhorse all day and all night and still expect it to get up the next day and give you the same quality of work that it did before. If you overwork any creature, including humans, you're not going to get that same return on your investment that you did before. And that's just bad business sense. So give those people a break and embody that for them too. In addition to these wellness trends at the workplace, helping people to be healthier or more well, there's also been a rising cost of healthcare. Across the entire globe, 69% of all deaths that occur each year are a result of preventable diseases. That means that they're not just old age or anything like that. It's issues with cardiovascular disease, respiratory diseases, diabetes, cancer, mental health conditions, and a lot of these mostly preventable chronic diseases are really taking a lot of money to treat. That cost could reach $47 trillion by the year 2030, and we are still talking about across the globe. And I think a lot of that is because in Western culture, specifically in the US, we think of healthcare as being sick care. It is not about prevention, it's about treatment. But these new programs and concepts like wellness sabbaticals are meant to prevent you from getting sick or being ill in any way, mentally, physically, emotionally, and so on. And preventing that ill health is one of the main goals of taking a wellness sabbatical. The sabbaticals are also helpful because it's easier to make better, healthy lifestyle choices when you don't have access to those unhealthy choices. So for example, if we're wanting to practice this small term, something I do in my own life is I don't bring chips into the house. If I don't have chips on hand, then I can't eat chips when I am craving something salty in the middle of the night. Instead, I will reach for almonds or something like that. Remember, my sleep schedule is a little bit different from everybody else's, so my middle of the night's like somebody else's evening snack, probably like their 7 p.m. snack. But if I don't have it available, I'm going to use my laziness and the environment around me to work for me. So I can't just go to the grocery store in the middle of the night where I live, and that means I can't go get the chips then. So if they're not already in the house, then I am out of luck. I'm just making sure I'm limiting the unhealthy choices available to me, so I make making healthy decisions the easy choice. We're going to go on a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about how we can turn this time of imposed quarantine or social distancing and working at home into a type of wellness sabbatical. Stay tuned.
The GSMC Life and Happiness Podcast takes you on a journey of exploration. We'll discuss tried and true methods alongside the latest trends of how to best live your life to its fullest and happiest. From psychology to meditation, science to self-help books, the GSMC Life and Happiness Podcast will help you to discover what makes you happy and how you can live life being the best you possible. Download the GSMC Life and Happiness Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
we're talking about the health consequences of overworking and how wellness sabbaticals can really positively make an impact on those negative traits. Now we're going to talk about how you can turn your own time in working from home in the era of COVID-19 into a wellness sabbatical. So traditionally, wellness sabbaticals, as they have been conceptualized in the past few years, are stays somewhere else other than your home, where you stay for at least about 21 days. They're all over the world. They have them in Thailand, Mexico, and so on. There's even one in the Asian continent that is 3 months long, and in it you will go from the Himalayas to Japan, and along the way you will do hiking, yoga, tai chi, you'll meditate, and it's been really helpful for a lot of people. When asked why people tend to do these sabbaticals, they found that 43% did it because they wanted to improve themselves or take time out of their lives to reassess. 46% said they wanted to see the world while they could, and 33% said they were using it to combat burnout and exhaustion. Now, I don't know about you, but that adds up to more than 100% when I do the math. So I'm thinking that in this study, they allowed them to select more than one. Kind of one of those click all that apply type concepts. Now, granted, a lot of these can be quite expensive. There are some that are about $1,400 for a full month, and that includes your lodging and some meals, not even all of them. And you still have requirements like doing 18 hours a week of different projects. Now, that's less than 3 hours per day. But if you are not keen on being a joiner, or you really wanted just the option to do these things, but not the requirements, then that might not be for you. It's really not something I'm personally inclined towards, being required to do that. For me, being able to be away from the workspace is partly about lifting some of those more stringent requirements. So I would like time to just be with myself rather than having to be with myself with other people or having an imposed time along with everyone else's schedules to do specific tasks. So, for me, these wellness sabbaticals at home are really ideal. It's about cultivating an environment at home that is conducive to both work and for wellness. In my opinion, I think one of the perks of this is also that you are trying to integrate wellness into your regular day-to-day life. So you still have work there, and although the work is still there and it's not a true full vacation, I think that it lends itself to keeping you in having a longer, more successful continuance of those habits that are forged. Because it's one thing to be able to sleep in and get on your circadian rhythm sleep schedule rather than whatever else is imposed by folks at work and society at large, and then have to go back to your workplace. And it's another to learn how to integrate those together. Now, I'm not saying don't take vacations. What I am saying is do both. Do wellness, sabbaticals, and vacations. And don't let anyone tell you that a staycation is not a vacation. If you're able to kick back and relax or have a new adventure and cultivate awe, whatever vacation looks like to you, it's a vacation. It doesn't matter if you spend the whole week reading books or if you are climbing all the highest mountains. The sabbatical is about creating space for yourself to heal while also still maintaining a healthy sense of connection. So really, to cultivate your own wellness sabbatical during quarantine, what you want to focus on is going to be movement/exercise, sleep, food, your work, and restful breaks from these type of things. Those are going to help you out in forming your own wellness sabbatical. So think about, how do you most enjoy getting exercise? What works best for sleep for you? Sleep experts recommend between 7 and 9 hours of sleep per night per person, at least for adults. Children need quite a bit more. But are you a 7-hour person, like my best friend? Or are you a 9-hour person, like yours truly? Everyone's a little bit different because our circadian rhythms are a little bit different. And science does reflect that as we perform more of these studies on circadian rhythms. We're not all necessarily on that same one, including not all being on a 24-hour cycle. Some people are on a 25 or 26-hour cycle. Some people are on a 22 or 23-hour cycle. And that's okay. We're all unique in those type of aspects, and there's nothing wrong with that. So now that we've identified those specific characteristics that we're looking to build for our wellness sabbaticals, I'm going to give you guys a few examples of some that you might want to try. So you can do yoga if you'd like, or Tai Chi, or Pilates, anything that helps you move slowly and intentionally, where you are focusing on your breath and on the movement. I'm not a huge fan of yoga for myself, but I do really enjoy Pilates, and I have enjoyed Tai Chi in the past too. I found it to be very calming, and I also like that there's precision involved with it. So I'm not just focusing on my breathing for it, which is not normally my thing, but I am able to focus on the movements and trying to get those to work in concert with each other, to get them timed appropriately. And for me, that is relaxing. There are tons of videos on YouTube and so on that will show you how to do Pilates and yoga and even just stretching. I am a big fan of stretching. I firmly believe it is one of the most underutilized, underappreciated components of health and wellness. So maybe try out some of those videos on YouTube and see what you like. You can also set yourself up with some calming, relaxing music. Some folks like whale song. That was always my mom's thing. Other people like the sounds of the rainforest and nature. And others prefer Rachmaninoff or Tchaikovsky, the classical music. You can also use apps to help you meditate and to help you sleep. Lately, I have been trying the 4-7-8 method for helping me go to sleep. So it's not an app, but it is intentional breathing. So with this method, I inhale for 4 beats, and then I hold my breath for about 7 beats, and then exhale slowly for about 8 beats. And slowing down your respiration in this manner helps to induce sleep. It helps to slow down your heart rate as well. So far, I'm still struggling a little bit with it, but I have been able to get to sleep earlier and earlier, which is my overall goal. So I'm waking up about 3 hours to 3.5 hours earlier this week than I was a couple of weeks ago. And I do it every day, even though I'm also working. That's just part of me trying to work that into my work life so that I don't just go in and give myself an excuse and go, hey, yeah, I did a lot of this while I was on vacation, but now I have to go back to work and I just don't have time. I am learning to make time, and that's one of the biggest boons I've gotten from the wellness sabbatical. If social interaction and social wellness is something that you really need more of in your life, you can also do that with your wellness sabbatical. Set up a happy hour time on Zoom or something with your friends and family. You could play some of those games on, what is that app called? Couch. Nope, I don't know why I thought it was Couch. It is called House Party. Perhaps there's a picture of a couch or something as the symbol for the app. You can also play games like Jackbox remotely. It is a blast. Anyone can play along with that by going to jackbox.tv on their browser. Only one person needs to have a copy of the Jackbox game in order for everyone to play it. I've played that often with my friends across town, even before COVID-19, just because we're all homebodies. Do we only live 4 minutes away from each other? Sure, but I like my home, and they like their home, but we also want to hang out. Jackbox is an easy way to do that. We've also done that by pulling up a Google Hangout while we played video games or board games, anything really, just so you can see the other person and hear their voice simultaneously. If you have something like an Xbox or a PlayStation that allows you to plug in a headset and hear other people simultaneously, you can also do that. If you just like company in the background or in general, but you don't necessarily want to interact, you can go on Twitch TV and listen to people talk. A lot of people go onto my Twitch channel when they're ready to fall asleep and they just want some friendly background voice. They call it having a background friend. Kind of like when you're very comfortable with someone and you're tired, so you're gonna hit the hay early while the rest of your friends are still hanging out. And you know that it's totally okay to do so because they're still gonna be there for you tomorrow. And they'll just leave the stream up while they go to sleep. And I love that. There are other people in there who are also talking with me, but it's also really nice to know that I can bring some measure of comfort to people who just want some company in the background, because I really enjoy background company too. Even when I study, I prefer to study somewhere where there is a little bit of background noise, or a lot of background noise, like a restaurant or a bar. When I was in college, I used to sit there and study in the cafeteria for hours. I would go in for lunch, and then lunch would turn into dinner while I was sitting there this entire time just poring over my book. But having the background noise helped me tune out. Whereas if I went to the library and there was complete silence, anytime somebody giggled or dropped a book or did anything like that that made more noise, then the noise became distracting because it was out of the ordinary. But for things like Twitch, just having that constant background friend noise and knowing what you are getting into and what you can expect has been really helpful for me. You can also write about your experiences and share them online, or just talk about your experiences online via programs like Twitch. That will help you feel like you are being productive in many ways, but it's also social wellness because there's a sense of community there. We have a lot of extra time now, theoretically, and everyone is interested in great personal stories. Personal narratives are fascinating. That's why we read books, why we watch the news, why we watch movies and TV shows. And personally, I love them more when they turn out to be true. At least for the positive ones, anyway. You can also journal in a notebook. If you already have one, go for it. I have a bunch of different looking notebooks around. Pretty much anything that has paper on it that's blank, I will write on it. So I have a journal for my shadow journaling and my gratitude journaling. I have one for podcast ideas, and I have another for writing music and things like that. So it might sound like a lot, but really, I guess I just need one of those 5 subject binder notebooks, or maybe a trapper keeper. I'm a millennial. I've got to stop trying to make trapper keepers happen again. They might be over at this point. Most kids aren't doing their homework on paper anymore. It's mostly on computer. But you guys know the trapper keepers were fire, and if I could bring them back, I would. You can also try bullet journaling. I am a big fan of the concept of bullet journaling, but I've not been very faithful to myself in making the time for it. So that's something I personally need to work on. Just because I haven't been great about it in the past doesn't mean I shouldn't try it again. I didn't quite make it that 21 days of doing it every single day. So maybe that's something I'll need to put in my bullet journal, to also bullet journal every day. If you're big into Pinterest and things like that, you can check out a lot of these different journaling types, including bullet journals online. They are aesthetic AF, and you guys may very well be very into those. I love the aesthetics of bullet journals, and it's really hard to just pick one. It helps you to also combine art and handwriting, which can be an art in and of itself, with other aspects of your productivity and your creativity, and just the healing power of getting all of those thoughts down on paper so that they're no longer just inside of you, rattling around in your brain. There's a soothing calm and stillness, at least for me, that comes with writing things out. And I tend to write in cursive when I am journaling. I will write in print when I am writing other things like lyrics or my grocery list, things like that, or just jotting down notes about the podcast. That's in print. But whenever I do my journaling, I prefer to do it in cursive. It helps calm me, and it's almost meditative with those movements, very similar to how one might feel with performing Tai Chi or meditating. It's giving me something to focus on. When I'm finished with my writing, I find that my heartbeat has generally slowed down, and so has my respiration. And I overall feel a lot more calm, and it helps ease my anxiety. And let's be honest, with COVID-19 and everything else going on right now, a lot of us need new methods to ease our anxiety. So these are some things that you can try from home, but remember, this is going to look different to everyone because we are all individuals. We just need to focus on taking the holistic approach that's right for us. So the key takeaways are that for making your wellness sabbatical during the era of COVID-19, you honestly just need to focus on getting movement/exercise, sleep, food, work, and relaxing. So just think about what helps you want to get movement. That can be walking in the park, or kayaking, or even playing games like Wii Sports or the Wii Fit, going out and playing basketball in the driveway, or throwback to my childhood, wiffle ball in the yard or out at the ball field with the kids. The ball fields here have been really empty for the past several months, at least where I'm at. So you can still get that social distancing in while also playing with your kids. And they can still run the bases and such. It's super fun. Take an orange cone with you if you'd like to play t-ball with them. They are great subs for t-ball for the munchkins. If you have to, schedule your sleep. Does that sound a little wild? Yes. But my sleep was scheduled for a long time, and it helped me go, okay, this is the time when I put everything down and I go to sleep. And I literally had it on my Google Calendar, and it would send me a notification on my phone and on my desktop when I was on my computer to remind me, hey, you have 15 minutes before you need to go to bed, and that would give me enough time to wrap up what I was doing, pee, wash my face, go ahead and moisturize too, super important, y'all, and brush my teeth, brush my hair, get ready for bed. That way I knew that I needed to wind down and it wasn't just something abrupt for me. Because when you're a workaholic, having an abrupt ending to your work can be very jarring and upsetting sometimes. So think about that. Think about different ways you can work to get better food into your diet. Remember, it doesn't have to be perfect. It just needs to be a better choice. In that regard, instead of chips and whatnot, I have been eating these delicious wasabi and soy sauce almonds. They're fantastic, and you can get them in the grocery store. Turns out almonds come in a ton of flavors. I thought they were just salted or unsalted, really. My bad. But you can get them covered in all kinds of stuff. The cardamom and apple ones are also very delicious, and they have pieces of dried apple in there. It is so tasty that I get to forget that it's health food, which is what I genuinely want in health food. I want it to be tasty. So no matter how this looks for you, just do your best to get in movement, sleep, food, work, and relaxation each day in your wellness sabbaticals. If you bullet journal, you can actually put in those 5 traits or those 5 goals for each day and write yourself out some options for ways to fulfill those. And that way, if you aren't feeling super creative the day of, or you're feeling a little meh, as we all do from time to time, you can just try to pick something from the list and call it a day. And sometimes that relaxation is just going to be being a burrito in your bed with a blanket, watching some reruns of your old favorite shows. And that's okay too. Well, you guys, I hope you have learned a lot about wellness sabbaticals today and how they can enrich your life by working these relaxation techniques and intentional living of our movements and sleep patterns and eating patterns and work into our regular daily lives. Work and wellness don't have to be mutually exclusive. We can find a balance somewhere in there if we dedicate ourselves to it and don't just try whatever works for everyone else. We have to explore a little bit and find out what works for us as individuals. I wish you the best of luck in your attempts at trying a wellness sabbatical. And if you do, please let me know on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. I would love to hear what that looks like for each of you. Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Health and Wellness Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'd like to ask that you please subscribe to the show, and writing a nice review always really helps us. Also, if you could please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, I'd appreciate it. Thank you kindly, and have a good night.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Health and Wellness Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.